Welcome to Your Health Reset, where we address the real root causes behind health issues today to get you rapid results on your health journey so you can be who you came here to be, mind, body, and spirit. I'm your host, Sinclair Keneally, survivor of complex chronic illness, expert on resolving root causes, and co-founder of Detox Rejuvenation and Meditation RX. Let's get started. Welcome back. I'm your host, Sinclair Keneally, and today I'm joined by the wonderful Harry Massey, a friend of mine, the founder of Nest Health, and I would say serial inventor. Welcome, Harry. It's great to have you on.
It's great to be here, Sinclair, and I'm really looking forward to it.
Fantastic. So obviously the theme of this whole conversation is how do we make rapid progress in our health journey once we finally ascertain what our root causes are? How do we appropriately handle those and respect the body's own healing processes? And I know this is a particular passion of yours, so I would love for you to share your exploration and your research and your whole philosophy around this and how your products help us achieve just that.
Yeah, there's an hour of answers there. So I think, I'll start with what is bioenergetic, just because people probably don't even know what that is. So I'll give maybe a very quick version of how we got into bioenergetics as well. So we were bedridden with chronic fatigue syndrome for 7 years. It came out from a number of climbing accidents, getting glandular fever, and honestly not knowing how to manage my energy or manage our emotions. And in that whole journey, we tried all the biochemistry type approaches, including coffee enemas, juicing, IVs, ozone, all this stuff. But unfortunately, we were getting sicker, not better. And after about 6 years of lying in bed, honestly, not going on dates, not working, not knowing what to do, I was like, why don't I just study where energy comes from? And that's when I was first introduced. I was looking it up on Yahoo, Google, I think it was Yahoo at the time. And we came across this field called bioenergetics, which is the study of energy in living systems. I said, let's contact the leading professor and people in this space, if you want to learn about something. So I wrote to, it's called Professor Peter Fraser. He actually set up the first acupuncture and TCM college in Australia, the first society for TCM Australia, all became part of Melbourne University, and he was running that department there. And he wrote back and said, I don't know why I'm sending you this. He sent me a paper on, actually it was titled Quantum Biology rather than Bioenergetics, but it was basically about bioenergetics. And he put a tagline, I don't know why I'm sending you this. And I read it, didn't make any sense, honestly. I understood a few percent, but I realized this guy was pretty bright and there was something in what he was saying. Mm-hmm. So, I wrote back, he agreed to a phone call. And fortunately for me, actually, I also had this idea at the time. I was like, if there's a way that I can get out of this situation and also help other people, that would be a good thing. In my head, I was like, wouldn't it be good if there was a home wellness system that would tell sick people like me how you could get better and basically analyze what was going on? I was sort of thinking of a PlayStation or a set-top box that connects to your TV that could diagnose you and instruct you on how to get you better. So I told him that idea. He liked that idea and he decided to work with me on creating it. And what he was thinking is well, if I don't get this really sick boy, whatever this idea or potential company is, won't get anywhere. So that was what was going on in his head. And so we agreed to meet. We both I flew from England, he flew from Australia. We met in LA, and I was ridiculously sick at the time. I hadn't been on a plane in 6 years at that point. We met up. Fortunately, we got on like a house on fire, intellectually. And he started to treat me with what will actually, when we'll get in, I'll explain what these are in a minute, but with what we call an infoceutical, which is basically information imprinted into basically a liquid supplement. And I got these insane, I say insane, but incredible healing reactions. So he first made something to get rid of the glandular fever, and I got this fever for a couple of days. So I knew there was something in what he was doing, and the fever went away and I got some form of resolution. I mean, it didn't cure me or anything. He made me something else called ESR, that stands for emotional stress release. And I was really wired but exhausted all of that time. And after that, I was just exhausted. I wasn't wired anymore. And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. And so, finally I was able to rest up enough to start to regenerate. It's obviously a very important part of the healing journey. You just can't recover when you're wired and stressed. And there's a whole lot of stories where he was basically treating me with what we now call infoceuticals for a couple of years. I got my health back. He ended up moving from Australia over to England. We formed the company we have today, which is Nest Health, which basically specializes in the field of bioenergetics. So that's how we got into bioenergetics. And bioenergetics itself, it stands for the study of energy in living systems. And really there's three main principles of how bioenergetics can get people better. The first is that life is an energy exchange system. The second is that the body is very like a battery. And the third is that fields govern that energy control system. And so to go into more detail of what we mean by those three statements. So life is an energy exchange system. We're both sitting here. I'm occasionally breathing because I'm talking a lot, but in between blah, 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 we're breathing in oxygen. We breathe out carbon dioxide. That's an exchange of energy. If I was outside in the sunlight photons would be hitting my skin, traveling through my skin into my tissue, hitting cellular water. They would spin off an electron, and those electrons are a source of energy. You could ground, like if you swim in the ocean, or to a certain extent, if you walk on the ground in a charged area, that you can get some electrons in from the earth. Everyone's heard of eating food as a source of energy exchange. You excrete food, you drink water, you excrete water. Like all of these things are exchanging energy in the environment. And from our point of view, we really want to optimize that exchange of energy because that's the source of energy for a start. So there's that. And that really leads into the second principle of the body being like a battery, and no different to any other battery. If you run the battery out of energy, it won't power anything. It doesn't work. The same is true of your body. If you don't have a certain amount of charge and level of energy, you can't go about your daily life. We can't do this interview. We can't work. We can't manage our kids. We can't eat, walk, etc. And in disease, when you have like more serious diseases, it's a massive energy depletion problem, that you don't have enough energy and reserves to repair yourself. And in a way, it's actually a fairly simple formula. Like if you have more energy available than you need for your daily activities, your energy levels will actually increase and you'll top them up and be able to recharge. If you're getting sick, you're still doing some full-time job, stressed out your brain, looking after the kids, cooking their meals, picking them up, doing all this stuff. Like you simply don't have any energy to recover and repair. And so you'll start getting sicker and, you end up in a chronic disease. So, the second principle is very much about looking after your overall energy reserves and making sure it's tip top. And that really leads us into the third sort of thing, which is the fields govern your energy control system. So one of the ways you can make sure that you're not using up too much energy each day, that your body battery, so you've got a battery, but you've also got your control system that's operating everything that's going in your body. That control system needs to be efficient. If it's inefficient, it basically draws too much power out of the battery. And that's really another definition of disease, is basically your control system being inefficient, not working properly. And if we take cancer, like cancer is a very extreme form of a control system going wrong. When a control system goes completely wrong, what happens? Your cells divide uncontrollably. It's not controlled, and you get tumors and growths going throughout your body, and obviously you can die. So that's when things get really out of control. And there's many versions of disease that are less serious than that. But either way, we want the body's control system to be as efficient as possible. And if it's really efficient, you're not even on a scale of well to disease. You're actually more from well to high performance, and you have tons of energy and you can go all day and do build businesses, look after your kids, do all these things. Like, you actually have plenty of energy available. So that's really what we want to achieve. So then that question comes out: how do you manage your body's control system?
Yeah, once you've already been depleted, once you become inefficient with trying to maintain and self-regulate, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so how the field manage an energy control system. Your control system, like, most people will be very used to the idea, maybe not totally understand it, but how chemistry controls certain things in the body. And in short, you have cells, you have molecules. It's sort of like a lock and key or a receptor type idea. A molecule will be detected by a receptor, and then it'll do a certain function in the cell, have a certain reaction or chemical reaction. Now, actually, the same is true from a field-based point of view. But the beautiful thing about fields is they are many, many orders of magnitude more efficient than biochemistry. It's actually almost infinite. You could say thousands of times, but it's pretty much instantaneous, actually, field-based effects. So like a chemical takes time to get from a gland to the tissue, or you have to digest it, etc. That all takes time. Yet the body's 70 trillion odd cells, they're all able to communicate and coordinate seamlessly millions and millions of times per second. And all of that happens pretty much, not quite perfectly, but pretty much perfectly enough to allow you to live your life. That can't be explained by chemistry alone, but it can be explained with basically a field-based mechanism. And okay, well, what is that? Well, it's light. It's mainly photons, some electromagnetism, sound, which is like phonons, etc. I mean, there's different things that create fields in the body, but we'll mainly stick with light just for this, whatever this is.
So I just want to underscore what you just said, because I think it's so important that the emphasis that so many people have, even in today's cutting edge functional medicine world, is still on the biochemical. It absolutely has its place, can be very supportive, but then we look at it and say, oh, that's really not efficient enough to actually be running the show. Well, it must be bioelectrical. And yes, the nervous system is essential, but again, not actually efficient enough to be running the show. So what we're really talking about is how the body communicates within itself at the light level. And that's where most of the communication is happening. So we can access healing at this level if we know how.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So then that gets us into the next thing of like, how can you interact with your body's energetic control system? So you can actually read that energetic control system to know exactly what's going on in the body, like where the control system is broken down. But because it's a field-based control system, you can also get very rapid results by interacting directly with it. And we call that control system the body field. You can also call it an energy control system. We have a couple of ways that you can do that. So one, in our Nest practitioner world, so practitioner company that sees clients in a clinic and remote, they're basically able to scan a client's energetic control system. And then, when they do that, they can identify where the breakdowns are in that control system. So they can see like the energy levels of your organs, your meridians, different mind-body correlations, and then all of those sorts of things. And that helps them to know exactly what's going on in the body. But then the more interesting part, at least from my point of view, is basically correcting that energetic control system. And we mentioned these funny things called an infoceutical. It's basically a ceutical or an information imprinted liquid supplement. So what Peter was doing, the original scientist that we were working with, he was looking at that energetic control system and how it was when it was working like optimally. So like your kidney or your liver, your heart, it has a certain energetic blueprint, if you like, or it's basically a certain informational pattern within that control system. But basically your control system is saying to your liver or to your heart, do this. It's like its operating system, if you like. So he was recording the information of that operating system. And when you give that information directly to the body, you're basically saying to the body, okay, your heart or liver or kidney is a little bit off. It should be like this. And this is where the energy, the body battery, and the whole life as an energy exchange system part comes in. If you've got some energy reserves, if you're exchanging energy environment, You can do, obviously you teach breath work, etc. Like breath work is a super quick way of getting energy into the body, good nutrition, all these other things are all good ways. So if you're feeding the body, if you're exchanging a good amount of energy with the environment, and then you provide it the right information so it knows what to do with that energy and those resources, your body's own healing system basically kicks in and it repairs. So like for us, like we teach people how to recharge their body battery, but also we direct their control system with what to do with that energy so that they can get their control system as efficient as possible, and then they're more likely to get well in, what did you say, rapid results in a rapid way. So that's basically it. So we scan the 72 different infoceuticals, and then you just take the generally 4 or 5 infoceuticals for a month, and then you would rescan. There's always a different priority, like it might be liver, heart. 1 month it could be correcting damage from a virus, like I had glandular fever a different month, but fortunately the system works out that order for you, so you don't actually have to think about it. It just works that out. That whole piece works. I'll let you ask a second question. That's such a big question.
I know, I can't help it. I wanted to let the audience know where we're going today with this.
Long question.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important for us all to remember that as we come together for this experience in the summit, we're bringing in people who are brand new to taking control of their health journey. We're bringing in people who are experts at their health conditions because they've had to become that. They often know more than their practitioners do. And then, of course, we have the practitioners who are tired of crashing patients and are very aware that what used to work somewhat well 10 to 20 years ago is not working as well now. So they're looking for new tools. And that's why I think the field of bioenergetics is so essential for us to become more literate in this little fun community that we have. We say that we're on the leading edge, but are we? And so that leads me to a question that I would love to get your take on. Where do you think the field of bioenergetics is going next? And, I'd love for you to share some of the projects that are newer that you've been working on that are just coming out now.
Yeah, there's some things that are like currently happening. So one, in this space, it was quite hard to get different universities interested historically. And it's mainly because big pharma have such a control or such an influence over projects that happen at universities.
Yes.
In short, basically, what we're talking about, because compared to a drug that may cost a patient thousands to even tens of thousands of dollars or a year, will cost the insurance company that, and obviously they want them on them for life. What we're talking about here is like, oh, well, you can just provide information to the body, it's going to help heal the body, and a few months later, you don't need those expensive drugs. So basically for those reasons, university research has been very scant on this, and its bioenergetics has been up against a very big, like a David and Goliath, a very large Goliath monster. However, really because of COVID, in the last couple of years, universities have become more open, really because they're like, some of the professors, like they've had their eyes open to the corruption. And so, for instance, like at University of San Diego, I met one of the professors there, Professor Hemel, was telling about our infoceuticals, and he was like, I don't know if I believe you or not, but I'm happy. You may be telling the truth, but I can tell. So we sent him a whole bunch of infoceuticals to his lab, and he can just directly see what happens to a tissue culture. So they have like lung tissue, muscle tissues, stem cells, etc. And for instance, there was a COVID one. I think everyone was obsessed with COVID in 2020, 2021. He would feed a culture of basically lung tissue with an infoceutical would help reject COVID. They would basically infect or try and infect the tissue, and then anyway, they saw a much higher rejection rate of COVID than in the control where we hadn't fed them the infoceutical. They did it with HIV. Actually, we got a 50% rejection rate with using our HIV infoceutical.
Fantastic.
I shouldn't say, sorry, an infoceutical that repairs HIV, because unfortunately we can't sell it commercially because of reasons. But anyway, that's what was happening in the lab. Different one with neural stem cells. They saw a 50% growth in neural stem cells over 10 days. They're very interested in cell membrane and mitochondria, and so they were able to see a protection effect on mitochondria. They would take hydrogen peroxide to basically damage the cell and damage mitochondria. They saw an 80% protection effect when we use cell driver again against the control. So that's fascinating. So like we have a non-profit research institute, Bioenergetics. If anyone's interested in supporting that, I'd love to hear from you. But basically we're lining up other universities just to continue research, because while Peter sort of broadly mapped the overall body field of this control system like 20 plus years ago now he didn't have access to all this lab equipment that we do now at the universities, where we can actually really see like all of the effects. And then also, we want to, a bit like, you had the DNA project or the Great Genome Project to map the human genome. We need to map like how fields affect like all the cells and tissues in the body. We need to understand like how field-based communication or cell-to-cell communication is working using photons, etc. There's an awful lot of work to be done in this space that's really, it's been done to death in biochemistry. Haven't really scratched the surface whatsoever in bioenergetic. We'd definitely love to hear from anyone who'd like to support that, or also researchers who want to do experiments in this space.
We are still struggling with this perception that until it's in the literature, it's not real. But we have to become more savvy about how the system works.
It's actually hard to get it in the literature. So Professor Hemmel, he was also doing research for Joe Dispenza. And so then they saw incredible effects from their meditations and all of that. They were studying COVID. And so very similar, almost identical effect that they saw with us actually. So they tried to publish that paper, and it was, because you go for a peer review, is rejected it. It's so damn threatening. Like they can't have meditation like heal from COVID. So even the literature side, they've just done all this for us. At the moment they've written up as a paper, and we're like trying to work out, because we don't want to repeat the rejection. So it's honestly a big undertaking, and then it's so revolutionary. We likely have to even though we know something can do X, we likely just have to do 6 or 7 papers that would say what we really want to say, but just a tiny bit, because you need to push the barrier each right, which is why research is a bit expensive. But anyway, it's a very long game to be able to turn, to intellectually turn all these other scientists.
And I just want to highlight this for our viewers, both for the practitioners in the audience and also the folks who are working on their health, because we're still struggling to catch up to this very real situation, which is you have to make it through 2 filters. So we even have speakers that are very forward thinking in some ways, but in their interviews, they were referring to things like this is in the literature, and as if that is all there is. And you have to understand how the literature is made, guys. Like science research has to be funded, and then for a paper to get published on it, for a study to actually be peer reviewed and make it into one of the journals, it has to make it through all these political mechanisms. And most of that is
against the important players in that particular subcategory field. And of course, they're the people doing the peer reviews. Yeah, they reject it. It doesn't matter how true the experiments, how many times they were repeated, they will reject it because it's against an existing theory paradigm normally pushed by the people who are doing the peer review. So beyond that, it's from NIH objectives, big pharma objectives. It goes on. There's strings beyond strings. There's the people who are doing the peer review, but there's money and influence behind them as well.
And all of that is totally legal. That doesn't even count the shady stuff. I want everybody to understand what it means to take your health into your own hands. And it means to understand what's been published and also look beyond that, because that's great. There's plenty of damning evidence in what's been published to point you along your path to what's really going to work for you. And it's very important to take into account that is lagging behind.
Ultimately, if I go back to our story, I had faith in this scientist who's Peter Fraser, and obviously that faith proved out to be a great thing for me. So I got my health back, but at least I tried all these different things. I found what worked for me. So I would say, whatever you think of what we're saying, have faith in someone, try it out, try a particular technique out. You could say, I want to try out bioenergetics for 3 months, 4 months, doesn't work for you, find a different approach. That's all. I think one's own experience is very important. And especially that idea you're saying of honestly, you have to take control of your health, because you know your own body better than anyone else. The rest of us who might be trying to help you, we're not inside you either. So that's what worked for me anyway.
Wonderful. Okay, so sorry to derail, but I just wanted to make sure that we're creating a framework that's supportive for everybody here. Harry, tell us about what you've recently brought to the market. I think it's very interesting.
So there's a new wearable by company, well, it's our company, called Energy for Life. The wearable's called a GEM, that stands for Guided Energy Management, and it basically will detect, correct, and protect your emotional energy. So we've worked out some algorithms that interprets your pulse based on our understanding of TCM. So you can, a TCM practitioner can read your pulse, but we got algorithms that can do that. The person doesn't have to do it manually. And from that, we can basically analyze your emotional status, analyze your overall energy, like the vitality and how it's deviated from typical, like I say, a Chinese normal pulse. And then it'll also correct and protect using the biosignatures that we were just describing that you can get in an infoceutical. And it also protects through meditations, but those meditations actually also program like a Pavlovian condition response into your subconscious or like via your nervous system, so that in the future, when the device is giving a little vibration on your wrist, because you've listened to the meditation a few times, like if you're, let's say you're in general an anxious person, the watch will recognize when you're being anxious and it'll put a signal into your body that will help you take from an anxious state to a state that you have faith in the future. Honestly, anxiety is you worrying about the future. And so it'll basically help you get into that state because you've listened to a meditation that has helped transform you into having more faithfulness. So yeah, that's Energy for Life. And there's a whole bunch of other like supportive products that help increase the energy in your body battery. There's some lifestyle products that go with the whole bioenergetics philosophy, but yeah, the core of the gem that's detecting, correcting, protecting your emotional energy. And then actually there's also like a whole program that helps you to master energy in your life, because a lot of things that we do in life, I know probably your listeners are very familiar with this because you do meditations, but like, so we have a GIST process that stands for gratitude, intention, surrender, trust, where we're based on like, there's a journal where you write down what you're grateful for, set your intentions across like these 4 main areas in life. And we basically teach people on, it's really teaching people how to master their life through mastering energy, and then like the products just support that within your life. So that's Energy for Life. Yeah. So it's an exciting new company.
Awesome. I'm so excited for you. I remember talking with you about this over a year ago. So it's fun to see it kind of fantastic. So where can people find your work?
So that's energy4 with a number 4 life.com. Very you'll be able to buy it on a pre-sale. And so if you want to see a practitioner for a scan and infoceuticals, there's a practitioner locator on neshealth.com. Yeah. And if you want to go really deep and become a bioenergetic health coach, you can also do that through neshealth.com.
Fantastic. Thanks for your contribution, Harry.
Thanks for listening. Go to detoxrejuvenation.com to find the links in the show notes to everything we covered in this episode. Please subscribe, review, and share with other humans who need this precious information. Let's help each other. Until next time, love, Sinclair.